Ever since I was a little boy, I have been into all types of racing. As far back as I can remember, I used to sit in the bleachers with my pops in many different drag tracks watching them go down the strip as fast as they could try to go. As I got older, I started to work on my own things, trying to make them faster on a very tight budget. Now that I'm a big boy, I can afford toys and things to make them toys go extremely fast, and I've almost always wanted to have the fastest of something in the world. But in today's crazy world of inventions and things to make these inventions go faster and faster each year, that goal becomes less and less easier to achieve. With some production cars now hitting top speeds far beyond 200 miles per hour, it seems like it's an unachievable goal by any means. This alone makes my desire to build something like this even greater. My love for all things gasoline-powered creations that go incredibly fast has always had a big place in my heart and my life, and today I would like to share a very special build with you guys that I've been holding back from social media for many years. A challenge is something I have always sought after, and a challenge is now what we have at our fingertips, as I'm working on building the world's fastest, full-frame, full-size, leaf spring, single-cab short bed pickup truck in the world. The highest record I could find from a full-size production truck is the 2004 Dodge Ram SRT10 with a quarter-mile time of 13.8 seconds and a top speed of 154 miles per hour. But no, that's too easy of a goal to beat with today's massively oversized superchargers, turbochargers, and nitrous injection kits. That's far too easy of a goal to achieve. I want to choose the steepest goal I can find, and I searched high and low on the internet and YouTube. However, the fastest leaf spring truck record I could find is only in the low 8 seconds in the quarter mile, and I'm shooting for the mid to low 7 seconds range overall. Who knows, it may even go faster than that. But today I give you the opportunity to follow me along on this crazy goal of mine if you dare. Alright guys, welcome back, Stupid Fast Nation. How are y'all doing today? I know you guys have probably seen this truck in the background of some of the videos over the course of the last several years. This has been a serious project in the making, and honestly, I wasn't going to do this video this week. I was going to do the Banshee sitting to my left over here, the Scammers Banshee, but I'm a little behind on the process for that, and I refuse to sacrifice quality on a build anymore. That's just not how I do things anymore. So unfortunately, that video is not ready to go this week. Now, I have been holding back on this truck for several years because I wanted to do one whole build video for you guys, and I wanted to do a start to finish build, and this pretty much will be a start to finish build video. It just won't have a lot of labor because what happened was, and I'm gonna give you guys a full story on this truck and how it came to be. I've had this truck here for, I think, at least 4 years now total, and I'll give you guys the whole rundown. But basically, I didn't film all of the stuff for this truck. The way I formulate my build videos now, the footage that I filmed for this truck, it's not full and complete. There's a lot of sections of it missing, but I will run you guys through the entire truck front to back and give you as much of that awesomeness build stuff that I can in this video. So let's start with the truck, how it started, and how this whole thing, this crazy mess of me wanting to go ridiculously fast in this thing, how it came to be. So for those of you OGs on my channel, you would know I have done many drag racing videos a long time ago, and I kind of swayed away from that over time due to, working with other YouTubers and stuff like that that just aren't in this niche of content. So I kind of stayed away from cars and trucks as far as YouTube content goes and social media content goes. However, my love for that stuff has never changed. I've always had high horsepower stuff in the background and always willing to play and get down and dirty. And I love to drag race anything that can go fast. You guys know that. So this truck started out as, its life started out as a 4x4 2001 Chevy Silverado, single cab short bed. The 4x4 version of this isn't as rare as the two-wheel drive version of this, but the 4x4 is still a little tougher to find the single cab short bed truck. Obviously, I chose single cab short bed because it is the lightest variant of all of the trucks. Now, moving on. So this thing was a complete and total rot box. I'll include some pictures for you guys. I mean, this thing was in rough shape. You know, we took the frame down. Cameraman Wes, when he used to be here with me doing videos all the time, he actually helped me out a good bit on this truck in the beginning. He helped me strip the frame down, put the cab on it, stuff like that. So basically, we started this truck as a 4x4, removed all of the 4x4 components off of this truck, including the torsion bars. Obviously, all the drivetrain stuff came out of this truck because it was going 2-wheel drive. So then after, you know, we basically stripped this whole truck down to a bare frame, got the frame completely degreased, uncoated, coated it with a product I really like to use on my frames now, a rust preventative product. It's called Rust Shield. It's an epoxy-based coating. So we coat the whole frame. After doing a couple modifications, I boxed both the tubes in. I ran a couple extra cross supports, a drive shaft loop, and then I installed a Ford 9-inch rear in this thing because that was the only thing I could think of that would take the abuse, that was budget friendly. Because you could get those for, you know, a couple $100 without a center section, and then you can beef up your own custom center section for that thing and put, you know, beefier axles in and stuff like that. So I put a Ford 9-inch rear in it. It's got 35 spline axles. It's got a strange center section in it with the large bearing upgrade, because we're gonna be putting some serious ponies down with this thing. And so, you know, I got all that in. I did a disc brake upgrade on it because it was a drum brake rear. I converted the whole truck to 5-lug. It was originally a 6x5.5 5-lug. That's how Chevy came from the factory. And then we went to a 5x4.75. I think that was the pattern. And then so it was a common pattern where you could get better wheel and tire combos. I put a X275 on the back. So it's a 15-inch rim with a 275 Pro radial. It's a very popular tire these days. That's all the small tire stuff you hear about. Purpose built, guys, purpose built. And so then once we got the frame done, I put the rear in it. We took all the front suspension out, took the torsion bar, you know, the front differential, all that stuff came out, cut all the brackets off for all that stuff, even cut some of the front end up and converted this to a A-arm suspension, like a 2-wheel drive A-arm setup with coilover springs up front. And so I didn't want the weight of all the 4x4 suspension components there if we're not utilizing the 4x4 differential setup, because that doesn't make any sense. In order for us to go really fast, we got to cut as much weight as we can off of this thing. So we took all the 4x4 stuff off of it. I wound up building an engine for this thing. I did a LS base, just like the truck came with from the factory, because I love my turbo LS stuff, as some of you guys know. So I did a 5.3 iron block. I had it punched out. A few years back, I actually wound up going down to Virginia and picking up this built motor. I actually had another daily driver Silverado just like this. I went and picked that up for 1,200 bucks, steal of a deal. It was the LS2 block, but it had forged rotating assembly, good for like 1,500 horse. It was like Arios pistons, Texas Speed crankshaft, forged steel crankshaft, and Eagle 2,000 horse rods with the stronger ARP bolts for the rods. So I went down and got that, and then that was my rotating assembly for this motor. It's a 383 stroker. So we punched the bore out. It's about a 4-inch bore now, I believe, or a 3.93 or something like that. It's been about 1.5 years since I built the motor. This thing's been through dyno sessions and everything already. So I put the motor together, you know, did my mild upgrades to it. We put a high pressure oil pump in it. I gapped all the rings for boost. I put regular MLS gaskets in it, the head gaskets, and standard 8740 series head studs, which we wound up upgrading later, and I'll get to that in a second. Put Trick Flow 225 heads on this thing. They were CNC ported and hand ported. They flowed 330 CFM at 600 inches of lift. Put a Don Shoemaker 700-inch lift cam, and it might have been like a 680-inch lift turbo cam. It's one of his world record camshafts. And the Trunion kit, you know, Texas Speed, hardened push rods, you know, all the things that you need to do in order to make this thing, let it make some serious horsepower. I then did a water-to-air intercooler and a Borg-Warner S482 with a billet wheel turbo, 2.5-inch piping, you know, that kind of stuff up here in the hood. So I made a stand for the turbo to connect to the frame, so that supported the weight. And then I didn't know that that turbo wasn't gonna make the power that I wanted to make. My power range, I was looking for like 14 to 1500 to the tire. So that turbo is not gonna do, which I'll get into that in a second too. The turbo 400 transmission with a PTC converter. The turbo 400 trans was built for almost 2,000 horsepower. It was very, very beefy two-wheel drive turbo 400. It's got a trans brake, it's got a reverse manual valve body, very, very beefy. It is a stock case though, so we'll see how much power the stock case will take. It's got a carbon fiber drive shaft that goes out to that billet yoke on the back of the rear end. And then I already talked about the rear. So that's basically the drivetrain of this with the turbo setup. The fuel system, I went with an Aeromotive. I believe it was the Stealth, which is not going to support the power that we want either. So that's going to wind up coming out. It was 120 pound injectors with a sheet metal intake, which I think will wind up blowing the intake apart on this thing. So I'm actually gonna be doing a lot of upgrades to this. So, you know, I put the cab on it, I put the bed on it. I love the step side bed look. I think they look incredibly sick with a step side bed, short bed, short cab. I mounted the fuel cell in the bed. I mounted the battery box and the ice box in the back because I did the water air intercooler, so I needed a pump and lines to be able to run that up front. And then once I got the truck fully put together, which as you can see in these videos here, that this truck does not have a roll cage yet. I have not put the roll cage in it yet because I wanted to make sure I put the correct roll cage in it. I wound up buying an 850 roll cage when I need a 750 roll cage, so I have to actually get that upgraded. But with that being said, we took this truck, so I got this truck fully put together. I spent about 2.5 years getting this thing put together. I have a ton of money into this truck. It's got all the good parts throughout the drivetrain on this thing. Once I got done building the truck, I probably spent a good 1.5 to 2 years building the truck. I took it to its first dyno session. It went down to see Carl Prooker in Warminster, PA, and we wound up popping the driver's side head gasket on this thing. And it did make like, I think it was like 815 horse to the tire on only 10 pounds of boost, which was a really good number, but it actually wasn't, and I'll explain why in a bit here. So I did a bunch of dyno sessions. I'll show you guys a couple of them here. So after the dyno session, I had to bring the truck back. I limped it back. I put it on the trailer, limped it back into the garage, and then it was leaking water out of the driver's side head gasket. I tore the whole thing apart. Everything still looked like brand spanking new, and come to find out, we had some sort of issue with the reluctor. We weren't sure exactly what it was, and even to this day, and I'll get into this here in a few, I think we did finally figure it out. So I changed the head gaskets out. I went with the Athena SCE, which is supposed to be good for like 2,000 horsepower. They have these stainless steel rings that go over the engine. So I did that. I put the ARP custom-made 625 head studs in this time around. And then I took it over to my good friend, Mr. Zajac, to get it dyno tuned. And I wound up blowing that head gasket again, but it only blew the felt out. So it must have lifted the head for like a quick second, and then that was it. And I'll show you guys a clip of that here.
was at like 150 on the pole, so it wasn't hot.
Yeah, no, sure about hot.
We're at about 11 degrees of timing and about like 10 air fuel, so we were really fat.
So then obviously, you know, I went over the first winter after the first dyno tune on this, which got the truck running good. And then I couldn't even get the thing up on boost because it would just pop head gaskets. So I put the most expensive head gasket and studs in it then, took it to John's, popped the head gasket again, which obviously is a little frustrating. Brought it back, took it apart, everything still looked like brand new. It must have just been lifting it for a second. Well, this time I decided to put a timing gun on it because I couldn't quite figure out what was going on. But when I put a timing light on it, that's when I noticed that this thing was actually advancing the timing. When you put a timing light on it and you rev it up, that timing would just jump forward like crazy. This thing would advance like anywhere from 40 to 60 degrees. And so that's what was originally blowing the head gaskets out. There was some sort of reluctor issue. So then I put a billet crank trigger kit on it, and I put the Holley or MSD front crank trigger. It's a billet setup. It takes the reluctor wheel completely out of the equation. I put it on Holley Terminator, took it back over to John's, got it re-dyno tuned again, and then I just didn't feel like driving all the way down to Philly to get it tuned by Carl. He's a great tuner, but John's just a little bit closer, so it worked out a little bit better that way for me, you know? And John's good peoples, man. He takes good care of his peoples. So I went and got a dyno tuned again, and we didn't push the head gasket. This was the last dyno run I've done with this truck. This brings us pretty much up to speed. So I did the last dyno session with this after putting the billet crank trigger kit on this thing and putting the Holley Terminator system in it, because we were on the stock ECU at first and then we went to the Holley. So, and that pretty much brings us up to speed. I found out that I didn't have top dead center set correctly with this front crank trigger kit. So because of that, it was retarding the timing and not letting it build boost. It still made, it was in the sevens. It still made like 700 and some horsepower to the tire, and it was still on like 9 pounds of boost. So it was very consistent with that power, even with retarded timing. And I think we're like 10 degrees retarded. We were calling for 18 degrees max advance just to get the boost rolling. But this thing kept hitting an RPM limit every dyno session. It would stop at like 6,000 RPM. So all 3 dyno sessions, this thing would just hit 6,000 RPM. So this last one, it was like 58, 5,600 RPM. It wouldn't climb, it would like hit an invisible wall. And we figured out 2 things. 1, obviously, the front crank trigger was not set properly. And 2, the coil packs I'm running on this thing, they're the Summit Racing coil packs. They are not meant for boosted applications because the cooling cycle in between the milliseconds of that pulsing, it's not meant to take that. Once it gets to a certain fire rate, it actually just starts automatically firing the coils off. So basically, once I got, you know, all this done, I figured that out. Me and John figured that out. John figured out the coil packs. I figured out the timing wheel on it. And then so now it's winter time. Can't race this thing. It's down for some repairs. I'm gonna do that stuff to it, fix all that, and then we're gonna do a bunch of upgrades. The turbo's not gonna support the power we want anyways. It's going to act like a wall. So I have a giant Garrett Exile 88 millimeter turbo. It's good for like 2,200 horsepower. insane turbo. That's going on this. It's going on methanol or either methanol or E90, but I have to upgrade the whole fuel system, the injectors. I'm stealing the injectors from this. They're going on the twin turbo 350Z, and then this truck is getting upgraded. And so basically that brings us up to speed on the truck. My plan is I'm going to get the parts on order for this thing here very soon, and then we are going to finish the build video on this thing and fully get this thing up and running, and I'm going to be chasing the world record with this thing. But yeah, so my goal is to chase the world record leaf spring. I don't know exactly what the record is, but my goal is to chase it and beat it. So anyways, if you guys like this build, you want to see more stuff like it, give me a thumbs up. Don't be afraid to hit that share and subscribe button. I'm going to be doing some really sick stuff in the upcoming months with this. As soon as that nice weather breaks, I'm pulling this baby out. We're getting her done. So as always, guys, thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Peace out.